Hey, welcome back, everyone. Back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 178. Here, my co-facilitator, Lionel. Thank.
Hello, everyone. How you all doing? How you doing, there, Mike?
I'm good, brother. Yourself?
I am well.
All right. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so that you get an alert on all the live streams that's going to happen going forward. And there's a docket in the description beneath the video. Follow that to keep up with the conversation for today, which is space and technology. Get right into this and share my screen. All right, so first item on the docket is from yo.edu, energy equity, bringing solar power to low-income communities. Isabel Palans lives in a small cabin nestled among mountain peaks and towering trees in the Colorado Rockies. Her home is often shaded and during the long winters buried under heaps of snow. Her monthly utility bills show credits for solar electricity production, but no solar panels are affixed to her roof. Instead, the power comes from the solar array from 60 miles away in a nearby valley. Last year, the panels nearly slashed her energy bill in half. I've been thrilled, said Palans, a 76-year-old retired waitress who relies partly on Social Security benefits to make ends meet. Palans is a subscriber to a 145 kilowatt solar array project run by Holy Cross Energy, a rural utility cooperative built with state funding. The program provides solar credits to more than 40 low income households in western Colorado that otherwise wouldn't have the financial or technical means to access renewable energy. The venture is just one of a growing number of so called community solar projects across the United States focused on delivering renewable energy. And the most cost savings it can provide to low income households from California to Minnesota to Massachusetts. Community or shared solar is a broadly defined as a project where multiple participants own or lease shares in a mid-sized solar facility, usually between 500 kilowatts and 5 megawatts, and receive credits that lower their monthly utility bills based on how much power the facility delivers to the grid. The sector has emerged as a bright spot in otherwise sluggish U.S. solar market, outpacing growth in new residential and utility installations that has been stymied by fading federal and state incentives. And the Trump administration tariffs on import tariffs on solar equipment. U.S. community solar capacity has more than quadrupled since 2016, increasing from more than 300 megawatts to nearly 1,400 megawatts today. That is enough electricity to power roughly 266,000 households. Analysts say they expect another 600 to 700 megawatts to go online this year. This is really interesting, man. What what I find interesting about this is that they're leveraging a lot of the existing infrastructure to actually get this up and going. So it's not like they're killing trees or they're killing some of the environment. They're actually leveraging buildings. Imagine a building that has space for like let's say 200 panels can generate a half a megawatt of power is actually a lot. So, what can actually be built out of something like this is actually tied in with blockchain, tied in with cryptocurrencies and tokens. How that would work, you would put the utility bills and actual consumption onto the blockchain and actually have it subsidized um, through a crypto and rewarded through tokens. So now you have a whole entire ecosystem that is constantly being that has its that's tied in with the infrastructure itself. And for the energy that you're not using, you actually get rewarded back with tokens. That's a whole entire system in itself. I know you have anything you want to add to this? I guess not. So I'll move on to the next article. All right, this next one is from physics.org. Google takes on Africa's challenges with first AI center in Ghana. An artificial intelligence research laboratory opened by Google in Ghana, the first of its kind in Africa, will take on challenges across the continent, researchers say. The U.S. technology giant said the lab in the capital, Accra, would address economic, political, and environmental issues. Africa has many challenges where the use of AI could be beneficial, sometimes even more than in other places. Google's head of AI, Accra, Mustafa Sisi, said AFP told AFP at the center of official opening this week. Similar research centers have already opened in cities around the world, including Tokyo, Zurich, New York, and Paris. The new lab, Sisi said, would use AI to develop solutions in healthcare, education, and agriculture, such as helping to diagnose certain types of crop disease. Sisi said, Sisi, an expert from Senegal, said he hoped specialist engineers and AI researchers would collaborate with local organizations and policymakers. Google is working with universities and startups in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa to enhance AI AI development regionally, he said. We just need to ensure that the right education and opportunities are in place, he said. That is why Google is sponsoring a lot of these young people for their degrees to help develop a new generation of AI developers. Other tech companies, including Facebook, have launched initiatives in Africa, and demographics are a key factor behind the drive. Africa's population is estimated to be 1.2 billion, 60% of them under the age of 24. By 2050, UN estimates the population will double to 2.4 billion people. And as an online as online social networks expand, that presents a huge market for U.S. tech giants to tap into. There's a clear opportunity for companies like Facebook and Google to really go in and put a hole in the sand, or put a pole in the sand, said Daniel Ives, a technology researcher at GBH Insights in New York. If you look at Netflix, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, where is a lot of where's a lot of the growth coming from? It's international, he told AFP in a recent interview. So a lot of market opportunities being brought out from artificial intelligence laboratories over there, and they're funding a lot of the startups. So while there's opportunities on one hand, there's a lot of competition coming on the other. So the idea here is to actually get ahead of the curve. And we talk about artificial intelligence all the time. So let me bring up Dacity and let me bring up the School of Artificial Intelligence. Here you go right here. So nano degrees program starting soon. deep learning, computer vision, deep reinforcement learning, machine learning engineer. Your first step into the program is AI programming with Python. And the second step is machine learning engineer. And then there's a step three, which is data structures and algorithms. So three-step program, 6 months for a nano degree, and I believe it's less than $1,000 if I'm correct, Mino.
Yeah, it's either between $500 and $1,000. I haven't seen a program on there that's more than $1,000, but I know it may be between $500 and $1,000. Now, question: with these Udacity programs, can you put the certifications on your LinkedIn or resume?
There's a link for that. Yeah, there's a link for that. So when you graduate, there's an actual link that goes to your LinkedIn account or your or to build a resume. So
Oh,
I
that's
know
awesome.
specifically. Yeah, I know specifically for LinkedIn, it actually links to your LinkedIn and it gives you credits. So it's verified.
Yeah, I know when I did the Udacity, excuse me, excuse me, when I did the Udacity, not the Udacity, I'm doing the Udacity now. When I did the edX, and they have a link for that, and there's a verification code, like a alphanumeric verification code you can include on your LinkedIn, so people can, whoever's looking at your LinkedIn profile, anybody can say, "Hey, I did this on edX," but there's an actual verification code. The person can click on it, and it takes them to a separate page, and you can look at the certificate just like that. That's some cool stuff, man.
Yeah. Do you know what the price is on the degree itself?
For edX,
Yes. No,
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 but
no, not edX, not edX for Udacity.
the one I'm doing or this one,
The one you're doing.
the one I'm doing, I paid 500. I either 500 or 550. It's a 4 month
It's less
class.
than 1,000.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, most definitely, most definitely. As a matter of
Right.
fact, I recently did a survey for Udacity, and it was asking what kind of pricing would I prefer, would if I were to pay more, what other benefits would I want on it, like professional mentoring and things like that. So it seems like they're trying to make their website more welcoming and add more benefits to it.
Hmm. All right. Let me get to this next article. All right. Next one is from makeuseof.com. Will the NVIDIA Jetson Nano replace the Raspberry Pi? This should be interesting because we just talked about Raspberry Pi a week ago. It's an exciting time for small factor computing, as if Raspberry Pi wasn't enough of an all purpose machine. More powerful boards capable of incredible feats keep appearing. The Jetson Nano from NVIDIA is a recent addition to the ranks of superpowered machine learning enabling boards. What makes it special? Should you buy one? What is NVIDIA Jetson all about? The Jetson Nano is a single board computer SBC around the size of a Raspberry Pi and aimed at AI and machine learning, seemingly a direct competitor to the Google Coral dev board. It is a third. It is third in the Jetson family alongside the already available TX2 and AGX Xavier development boards. NVIDIA are leveraging their prowess for graphics power processing power for these small computers using parallel neural networks to process multiple videos and sensors simultaneously. While all three Jetson boards aim to be accessible to all, the Nano is for both hobby and professional developers. The dev kit comprises of two parts: a baseboard for connectivity and a system on module for the actual processing units. What is a system on module? System on module refers to any development board which has all the system critical parts in a removable module. The Nano features a 260 pin edge connector to attach it to the baseboard for development. Once development is over, the SOM can be removed and added into an embedded system with custom inputs. And a new SOM connects to the baseboard for future development. That's actually pretty slick. So basically, a SOM has a CPU quad-core ARM Cortex A57 processor, and the GPU is an NVIDIA Maxwell architecture with 128 NVIDIA CUDA cores. And the RAM is 4 gigabytes. Storage is 16 gigabytes. It does video at 4K, 30 frames per second, and 60 frames per second for decoding. So encoding and decoding is two different things. So encoding is when you're actually processing the video, and then decoding is when you're actually going to be reviewing the video. Cameras, it has 12 lanes based on the yeah, it's based on I guess the PCI layer. Sorry. And the connectivity is gigabit Ethernet, and the display board is HDMI. So, and then the USB is USB 3.0. PCI lanes is 2 to 4 lanes, and then it has a SDIO, which is for connecting external boards.
It seems like there's a few devices coming for market share of the Raspberry Pi, but particularly this one, I didn't. I may have skipped it, but outside of the price, if the price is relatively competitive to the Raspberry Pi, this one does a lot more, and it seems like it's quote unquote just in time when people are building their own rockets, downloading this information from NASA, how to do other things with rovers, how to build their own rovers, and this seems like this would allow people to expand the field of, I'll say, tinkering, so they can do more with a single device and not have to break the bank.
It will come as a shock to nobody that NVIDIA has produced a board suited well to visual tasks. Object recognition is a key focus here, and the VisionWorks SDK software development kit has many potential applications in this field. Rather than use a separate processing unit for machine learning tasks, the Jetson Nano uses a Maxwell GPU with 128 CUDA cores for heavy lifting. The Jetson Inference project features demos of a pre-trained neural network performing high-performance multiple object recognition in a variety of environments. Feature tracking, image stabilization, motion prediction, and multiple source simultaneous feed processing are all featured in the demo packages. So this is more geared towards artificial intelligence development and machine learning development, not so much like the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi is a general purpose SBC single board computer, whereas this is more targeted at the use of artificial intelligence in areas where it's AI needs to be. If you're trying to if you're using TensorFlow, for example, TensorFlow is an artificial intelligence platform, machine learning platform that can be downloaded from GitHub. if you were going to use that and you wanted to do the development directly onto an isolated device, this would be the device that you would use it for. And then the SDIO or the GPIO, which is general purpose input output, that board would act. I mean, that connector would actually connect to something like a lidar sensor, or it would connect to something else like a one of those red cameras, one of those high definition cameras for other functions. So that's what that's really designed for. Um, what will it be used for? Given its prowess, the video analysis and small form factor, the Jetson Nano will almost certainly shine in robotics and autonomous vehicles. Many of these demos show these applications in action. Given its power and size, it is also likely is also likely this is grammatically wrong. It is also likely to work in embedded systems which rely on facial and object recognition. For hobbyists like us, it seems to be a perfect blend of powerful machine learning possibilities and a factor familiar to anyone who has fiddled with a Raspberry Pi. While you can use machine learning frameworks like TensorFlow, I just mentioned that earlier, TensorFlow on Raspberry Pi, the Jetson Nano is much more suited for the task. That's exactly what I just mentioned a few seconds ago, that you could download TensorFlow 2.0 and it actually all it needs is a piece of hardware to work on. And a Raspberry Pi is like the bare minimum that you would need. But the NVIDIA Jetson is actually geared towards just that. You know, you would probably leave the Raspberry Pi to do something um, more robust, like just run a basic Linux operating system for general purpose reasons, and then the NVIDIA Jetson would actually be used for the robotics or for the autonomous vehicle. So there's different areas where you can use different computers for different reasons. But there's nothing saying that you couldn't use the Jetson for general purpose computing too. It's just a matter of it's so expensive to use for general purpose computing.
Okay, okay, I got it. Gotcha.
Yeah, this is going to be actually interesting, man. Because when we went over the space hangout before, we were talking about uh, downloading the schematics for the NASA rover that they put up on GitHub. This could actually be used to drive that rover if you have enough instructions in place. That it could actually drive itself around either Mars or the Moon or anywhere else that you want to place it, especially if you have enough knowledge fed into it. It has 16 gigabytes of storage space, so you can feed a whole lot of information, images, and so on and so forth to that mission, right? To that application. So there's a whole lot of things that can be done with this.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, this can open up everyday people who want to build things such as the things we just mentioned. If this allows them to do just that.
Hmm. I just want to read this real quick. Could it replace my Raspberry Pi? While Google Coral dev board is powerful, it doesn't stack up to the Raspberry Pi in some ways. The Raspberry Pi is a great hobby computer for do-it-yourself electronics. It can also double as a desktop computer in a pinch. Sure, the Coral dev board is powerful, but their own documents advise against attaching a mouse and keyboard. The Coral's custom OS is for SSH connections primarily. It is, however, likely capable of sustaining any variation of Linux. This puts it right back up there as a direct Pi competitor. There is a problem though. If you want a board for learning machine learning, but one that can also perform other daily tasks, why would you buy the Corel Dev board? The Jetson Nano supports a display port and a previously mentioned and as previously mentioned, has impressive video examples straight out of the box. The custom Ubuntu desktop will be familiar to many, and the cheaper price point will also make it an attractive prospect for many, even those uninterested in machine learning. So this is actually reasonably priced considering what it offers, in terms of the video processing, right? So I mentioned earlier that it has a GPIO connector, which is general purpose input output um, connector for connecting other devices to it. So it does the video processing, 30 frames per second encoding and 60 frames per second decoding. That's actually really good if you're using it for robotics because a robot only has to look at so many items depending on what the application is and what the environment is. So therefore, if you feed it the right amount of images and data and 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 really make it really customize the machine learning aspect, this could actually power up or not power up. It could actually function on its own depending on how much information you feed to it, so it can do its task. I can't see anything wrong with this.
Yeah, man, this sounds interesting. Like the more you read, it's like okay, you start to think of things you can use it for, like specific things that it's perfect for.
Hmm. All right, let me get to this next one. All right, this next one is from PCMag.com. AMD processors fill void left by Intel chip shortage. Intel's ongoing chip shortage has been good news for rival AMD. Although PC shipments fell year over year in this year's first quarter by 3%, the decline wasn't as bad as originally projected, even with Intel's limited processor supplies, according to research firm IDC, in part because more PC vendors source chips from AMD to power their latest products. IDC is still tabulating the final numbers, but AMD gained some share over Intel in light of its chip shortage, which has been going on since last year's third quarter. IDC researcher Jitesh Urani told PC Mag. Intel has been prioritizing chips for the premium end of the market and to a certain extent Chromebooks as well, he said. But at the lower end, there's been a shortage. So AMD has been able to provide chips in many cases to manufacturers who haven't been able to source them from Intel. As a result, PC vendors have been lately releasing more AMD powered Windows laptops and Chromebooks, a trend that could continue throughout the year, even as Intel's chip shortage is expected to end by the 2019 third quarter. It takes a lot for a PC vendor to build a SKU around an AMD processor, so I don't see them switching back to Intel processors just because it's available, at least not in the near term. The other reason why PC shipments outperform IDC's projection is in the first quarter was due to businesses migrating to Windows 10. The older Windows 7 OS will lose official support from Microsoft in January 2020, which has prompted enterprises to upgrade their PC hardware. During the first quarter, IDC noticed a surprising increase in commercial desktop shipments. So what's happening here, and I've been talking about this since last summer, that AMD stock is something you got to pay attention to. This is going to balloon up all year round, all year round, but quarter after quarter. So pay attention to this stuff on the fundamental side for when you're looking at these tech stocks, because like the article said, once a vendor switches to a certain chip, it's not likely they're going to switch away from it. So if they're getting value out of the chip, they don't see any reason to drop it at the moment just because Intel can fulfill a back order. Well, it's too late now because when you design a board and you design a computer, it's kind of set in stone. It's not plug and play. It's not like a cake where you baked it for a few hours and then if nobody eats it at the end of the day, you can just throw it away and go make some more tomorrow. That's not how this works in the computer world. Once the boards are designed, once the platforms have been tested, that's it. They're really committed to that platform. If it works the way that I think it should work and the way it's supposed to work, then they're committed to it. So they're not going to change away from it. This is good for AMD. Um, once you know, once they fulfill most of those orders that Intel failed to do, you're going to see their stock prices go right through the roof.
Yeah, I imagine it's a big it's a big move to change suppliers. There's nothing
Mhm.
that it's not a push of a button or a meeting say, well, next month we're going to be moving to AMD. Next topic on the
Mhm.
docket. No, it takes time. It takes strategic time. It takes planning. It takes a lot of effort to just to change, especially processor. That's it's not like it's 20 different um, major processor suppliers out there. You have to change your whole strategy. So, like, yeah, I agree with you saying that they're not as easy to say, okay, this month we're going to be going with AMD and not have some type of semblance brand loyalty because the switching back and forth it just takes too much.
Well, not so much that it takes too much. You kind of got an idea of what your customer base wants and whether or not they care about Intel being inside, right? If you look at the logo on any computer that had an Intel chip, it always said, that little swirly logo that said Intel inside. Well, most consumers now who are clutching their wallets and clutching their purses, they're looking at this and saying, if this is, I don't care if it's an AMD or it's an Intel, as long as it works. Well, if you've been selling all these AMD products all this time and it works just fine, we don't care if it's Intel. And if we can buy it at a certain price, let's say the Intel costs 500, but the AMD only costs 250, 275, and the customer says, I don't care what's in there, well, we're just going to keep selling it at 275 then, because it doesn't matter to the customer. The customer doesn't care anymore. Before in the tech industry, you would get fired for not buying Intel, not buying AMD, um, not buying Cisco. Now, in this new market, this new trend, emerging market has said, we really don't care if it's not Intel or if it's not IBM or it's not Cisco. If it's you know if it's Palo Alto, um, if it's AMD or if it's SAP instead of IBM, we don't care as long as it works. Let me get to this next article. All right, this next one is from The Economist. Amazon empire rests on its low key approach to AI. Amazon's 6-page memos are famous. Executives must write one every year, laying out their business plan. Less less well known is that these missives must have must always answer one question in particular. How are you planning to use machine learning? Responses like not much are, according to Amazon managers, discouraged. Machine learning is a form of artificial intelligence which mines data for patterns that can be used to make predictions. It took it took root at Amazon in 1999 when Jeff Wilk joined the firm. Mr. Wilk, who today is second in command to Jeff Bezos, set up a team of scientists to study Amazon's internal processes in order to improve their efficiency. He wove his boffins into business units, turning a cycle of self-assessment and improvement into the default pattern. Soon, the cycle involved machine learning algorithms. The first one recommended books in that customers might like. As Mr. Bezos' ambitions grew, so did the importance of automated insights. Yet, whereas it follows, yeah, excuse me, yet whereas its fellow tech titans flaunt their AI powers at every opportunity, Facebook's facial recognition software, Apple's Siri digital assistant, or Alphabet's self-driving cars, and Master Go player, Amazon has adopted a low low key approach to machine learning. Yes, its Alexa competes with Siri, and the company offers predictive services in its cloud. But the algorithms most critical to the company's success are those it uses to constantly streamline its own operations. The feedback loop looks the same as its consumer facing AI. Build a service, attract customers, gather data, and let computers learn from these data. All at scale of all at scale that human labor could not emulate. Consider Amazon's fulfillment centers. These vast warehouses, more than 100 in North America and 60 odd around the world, are the beating heart of its $207 billion online shopping business. They store and dispatch the goods Amazon sells. Inside one on the outskirts of Seattle, packages hurtle along conveyor belts at the speed of a moped. The noise is deafening, and the facility seemingly uh, bereft of humans. Instead, inside a fenced-off area the size of a football field, is it's sit thousands of yellow cuboid shelving units, each 6 feet each 6 feet tall. Amazon calls them pods. Hundreds of robots shuffle these in and out of neat rows and sliding beneath them and dragging them around. Toothpaste, books, socks are stacked in a manner that appears random to a human observer, though the lens of algorithms guiding the process, though it makes all supreme sense. Human workers or associates in company vernacular man stations at gaps in the fence and surround this robot field. Some pick items out of the pods brought, brought to them by a robot. Others pack items into empty pods to be whirled away and stored. Whenever they pick or place an item, they scan the product and the relevant shelf with a barcode reader so that the software can keep track. The man in charge of developing these algorithms is Brad Porter, Amazon's chief roboticist. His team is a his team is Mr. Woke's optimization squad for fulfillment centers. Mr. Porter pays attention to pod gaps or the amount of time that the human worker has to wait before a robot drags a pod to their station. Fewer and shorter gaps means less downtime for the human worker, faster flow of goods through the warehouse, and ultimately speedier Amazon delivery to your doorstep. Mr. Porter's team is constantly experimenting with new optimizations, but rolls them out with caution. Traffic jams in robot field can be hellish. Amazon Web Services is the other piece of the core infrastructure. It underpins Amazon's $26 billion cloud computing business, which allows companies to host websites and apps without servers of their own. AWS chief use of machine learning is to forecast demand for computation. Insufficient computing power as internet users flock to a customer service can engender errors, and lots of sales on the users count as error pages. So basically, what Amazon has been doing has they tested it in house, and now they also transferred that to the outside, to the customer facing side and the public facing side, which is a very genius way of recouping the investment that you made internally is now being met externally from a public from an e-commerce standpoint, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so they, like you say, tested it in house, and if I guess needs apologize. And the plethora of how should I put this, AI machinery that whatever they're testing, so basically they basically did their own in-house R&D on this,
Hmm.
then put it
Yeah.
to.
Hmm.
Okay, okay, all right, I follow.
Yeah. So the money that they spent on that, that's they made that money back two and three times.
Now that's kind of like what. Now this is what Jeff Bezos does. These little type of projects like this to see if it'll work first before he
Hmm.
really put money into it to see if it'll scale up to try to scale it up, because he did that with something else. I think when he was scanning books onto. No, you know what? I apologize. That was Google. That was Google. I got I got businesses mixed up there. Okay. Okay. But I still follow though.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, man, because it, they can't afford. Well, they can afford it. They couldn't afford to put out artificial intelligence and things like that without actually understanding if it's going to work or not. A lot of companies don't actually do this, so it's not like Fidelity, for example, says we're gonna sign up all of our employees for cryptocurrencies to see how it works, and then we're gonna put it out into the market. No, they put their stuff out into the market to be the first ones out there, but they never really tested it in house against their own employee base. Their employee base is anywhere between 10 to 20,000 people. So if you can test it in house, you can actually sign up all of your employees first to to get the ball rolling to say, okay, we have this many crypto signups into their portfolios, and now we can look at the numbers internally before we even go to the market. But I'm not entirely sure if they did that or not. But what it sounds like to me, they did not do that. So that's what separates us.
But if you look at it, and I'm agreeing with you, yeah. If you look at it, it's somewhat smart because you doing like small preliminary strong arm type of deal to see if something works. You got an idea, and you're tinkering around with it. But in Amazon's case, they can really tinker with it because they have the infrastructure and the staff to do it. So you're tinkering around with it, and you are adding different things, or you're changing different things without losing a lot of money, without exerting a lot of energy to do these things, and you get it to a point where when you do send it to research and development, or try to scale it out, and to test it in the field, you don't have to go through all those little things you did when you were personally hands-on tinkering around with it. So
Exactly.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's definitely exactly how it works. Most companies don't see it that way though. They like to keep things secret from their employees, and that really hurts them in the long run because had you had taken a sample base in the first place on real world people internally, you would have less problems. And plus, you still get to maintain your signups, right? So you don't have to worry about, um, you know, trying to gain customers. You already have the customers internally. So, all right, let me get to this next article. All right, this next article is from CoinDesk.com. U.S. Energy Department eyes blockchain to prevent power plant cyber attacks. The U.S. Department of Energy is exploring blockchain technology as a line of defense against cyber attacks on power plants. The department's National Energy Technology Laboratory unit announced Wednesday that phase two of An electric grid security project has been launched in partnership with decentralized cybersecurity startup Takeon, formerly Grid 7. The laboratory provided a grant of $1 million to Takeon last year, and now, as part of the second phase of the project, the startup will research on how blockchain technology can be used to secure a power plant by keeping all sensor, actuator, and device transactions on a distributed ledger. Accurate information on the status of the power plant operations is critical for electric grid security. Adding that, when storage of key information is decentralized, there is no single point of failure. In an example of how a cyber attack could take place on the power plant, the lab said a system could be compromised so that it appears operational when it has actually been shut down by hackers, potentially even millions without power. Such an attack took place at a power plant in Ukraine in 2016, the laboratory said, which caused widespread power outages during the winter months. Takeon plans to work on other applications too that would help secure energy transactions to protect process data at power generation facilities, increase grid reliability, and integrate a more decentralized energy infrastructure. The project is part of the Energy Department's Office of Fossil Fuel Sensors and Controls program and is funded through the department's Small Business and Innovation Research Program. This is not the first time the department has looked to explore blockchain for technological improvements. Last year, it partnered with BlockCypher to develop solutions allowing energy transactions to be settled across multiple blockchains. The department also recently announced federal funding for up to $4.8 million for universities working on research and development projects, including those related to blockchain. So, I know you're a blockchain guy. What's your take on this?
I remember a couple of months ago we went over something about I forgot the name of the article, but we went over something talking about how someone's going to use blockchain to prevent cyber attacks.
Hmm.
And in it, I believe they were talking about the logs. They want to make the logs decentralized, so it's not easy to rewrite the logs or manipulate the logs. Is what I'm trying to say. Now with this, it seems like they're trying to do the same thing in terms of preventing cyber attacks on their grid. Now, albeit the system they may use is proprietary to whatever they're doing, but still, even if it's a proprietary system, it makes it better for them to apply the blockchain um, or apply blockchain technology to make the system more secure by saying, hey, okay, these are the security functions or this is our security is set up, and we can apply blockchain in order to go back to the logs again. That example to if someone is there's no one point of attack, someone can attack or brute force or whatever the case may be. If they really want to get into our security system, then they have to then go about because okay, I want to make this too confusing for people that's listening because there's going to be more than one. I'm gonna say central grid station or a satellite grid station. So let's say it's 7 satellite grid stations, and just use 7. Then each one will have a copy of the security measures of the other one. So if someone trying to get into one satellite grid system, brick and mortar system, they can't because the rest of the 6 will recognize, okay, the logs that we have coming from this one doesn't match. So therefore, something must be going on, and that can easily, and that's real time, and that's in real time. So something must be going on. Send somebody over there to see what's to investigate to see what's going on. That's what I'm thinking that will happen. What they're trying to do in terms of the situation.
Yeah, the centralization of logging is a problem because it, from a cybersecurity standpoint, for those of you who don't know, I work in cybersecurity. If you can't, if your central login area goes down, your SIM, right, your SIEM, security incidents and event manager, if that goes down, then you lose visibility. If you lose visibility, then and you're blind, you're vulnerable. So that creates a vulnerability or increases risk for the line of business. What they're doing with blockchain is they're taking that centralization and decentralizing it across multiple areas of contingency to improve high availability. And part of any sort of business continuity is about high availability, complete continuity of business operations. Putting that on the blockchain is actually really good. However, um, I'm curious to know what the scalability of it is because once you add too many items into too many logs streamed into a distributed database, you do run into scalability issues. So I'd be curious to know how it works. Per 100, per 1,000, per 10,000, because scalability is a big problem in any sort of log aggregation. Whenever you run for example, if we run into logs on a in a sim, that can cost us $1 million a year in elasticity because the more logs we collect, the bigger the database is going to be. The bigger the database is going to be, the more resources you're going to need. So
That's a good point. That's a good point because where one, well, currently it only takes a few, let's say gigs to record the logs. Now you're multiplying that by however many distribution points you're distributing the logs to. So let's say 100, you're multiplying by 100. You're gonna eat up that space quick. Now, what I've been hearing people say on crypto blockchains are with Bitcoin blockchain, it's starting to get bigger and bigger. After a while, it's going to be a terabyte of memory. So not too many people are going to be able to download a full node. But I say this to say, I've been hearing people say, well, after a while, we know the older part of that chain is pretty much done. Not done as in needed, but it's not gonna. It doesn't mean too much in the long run. So they'll store that memory or that information in a cold storage offline. So that'll keep the as much memory. You won't need as much memory. So that can be an alternative that to help with them. But I understand what you're saying.
yeah, there's a lot of ways you can deal with storage in that capacity. You can go with you keep hot storage, warm storage, and cold storage, and you can come up with a hybrid where you have warm storage for the first 24 hours, and then anything after 24 hours, you push it to cold storage, and you keep doing that throughout the week, depending on how you want to do it. Depends on how much scalability you're looking at. This would actually improve your scalability because you're not holding on to logs for more than 24 hours anyways. And if you need to go back for more than 24 hours, um, you have the cold storage available. let me see. Keep it techie asking in the chat. Do you think part of the ledger will be archived? That might be a question for you, Lino.
Well, yeah, it has to be. Excuse me, it has to be because right now Bitcoin's blockchain is a couple gigs. I want to say it's not half a terabyte yet, but it's getting up there. I want to say how many gigs is Bitcoin's blockchain. It got to be like 30 gigs. I'm going. Okay, you know what? I stand corrected. It's at 149 gigs. And that's after 10
All right,
years.
King King Nick just said it's 225 gigabytes for full BTC node.
All right. See, and that's what I'm talking about. See, when if you want to run a full node and you are everyday person, we sitting up here and we saying, well, I want to run a full node. It's gonna take you some days to download that thing unless you get a bootstrap. Unless you got somebody that'll send you the file to bootstrap it. If you don't know nobody, it's gonna and depending on how fast your computer is, it's gonna take you a week to download that thing. Um, so some of that stuff, the people who are in charge of overseeing Bitcoins, um, blockchain, they'll they they'll need to come up with an update in the future to say, hey, transactions from the beginning, even though it's important and it's integral to the blockchain, it's not now important. So every so often we're going to continuously shorten the hot part of the Bitcoin blockchain, and the older transaction will just store off chain. Well, we'll just store in facilities because they're not immediately integral to Bitcoin's blockchain. If that answers Keep It Techie's question. And I know King Nick says 2.3 terabytes for a full Ethereum archive node, uh, less for a regular node. And Ethereum, I think Ethereum have more. Yeah, Ethereum have more people on their blockchain. Ethereum have countries such as Russia. You got the Ethereum Blockchain Alliance that's recording things for Ethereum's blockchain. So it's a lot more. And um, for a block one Bitcoin's blockchain is every 10 minutes, but for Ethereum it's quicker. So you're putting blocks on the blockchain more and more at a faster pace. So it's going to be longer. It's going to be more information. So after a while, everyday person is not going to be able to run a full node because you're going to have to get a specialized computer, or not a specialized computer, but some type of equipment like a Raspberry Pi, but you may need to connect it to like 5 terabytes of memory. So after a while, they're going to need to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. So my answer to that is, do I think it will be archived? I think they have to clean up the database to determine how many of those wallets have been compromised and what's inactive, what's not active, things of that nature. There needs to be some form of ongoing maintenance because it keeps scaling up in size, but at the same time, that doesn't determine the activity. That just tells you how much storage is there. So if you have a whole lot of things that are not, if you have a whole lot of wallets and things like that that are not active, it's only cluttering up the database, and that's what slows it down. And that's why I mentioned earlier about scalability. It's going to be hard for you to scale logs on a database on a distributed ledger like that because if the storage mechanisms hasn't been figured out, if the compression methods haven't been figured out, or algorithms haven't been figured out for compressing, um, you're going to run into a lot of scalability issues. It's a noble idea though. Let me get to this next article. All right, next one is from Engadget.com. Ford CEO says the company overestimated self-driving cars. Ford CEO Jim Hackett scaled back hopes about the company's plans for self-driving cars this week, admitting that the first vehicles will have limits. We overestimated the arrivals of autonomous vehicles, said Hackett, who once headed the company's autonomous vehicle division at a Detroit Economic Club event on Tuesday. While Ford still plans on launching self-driving car fleet in 2021, Hackett added that its applications will be narrow, what we would call geofence, because the problem is so complex. Hackett's announcement comes nearly 6 months after its CEO of autonomous vehicles, Sharif Markabi, detailed plans for the company's self-driving car service in Medium Post. The company has invested over $4 billion in the technology department through 2023, including over $1 billion in Argo Artificial Intelligence, an artificial intelligence company that is creating a virtual driving system. Ford is currently testing its self-driving vehicles in Miami, Washington, D.C., and Detroit. Following years of hype and billions of dollars in investment, some other companies are admitting that expectations for self-driving cars were perhaps too high. Uber predicted earlier this week that its own fleet of autonomous cars would have a long wait until they finally hit the road. Waymo launched its self-driving taxi service late last year, but haven't opened it to the general public or expanded it beyond a few geofence areas in Phoenix, Arizona. Even though Hackett walked back immediate hopes for autonomous vehicles, he made it clear that he believed in the technology's potential. When we bring this to market, or bring this thing to market, it's going to be really powerful, Hackett added. So it sounds to me like there's still a lot of wrinkles that need to be ironed out for the most part when it comes to these autonomous vehicles. Mostly, I think, because of bureaucratic pressure. I've always on this channel, I've always advocated that car companies should be investing this sort of technology into Africa to get it right the first time, because the bureaucratic tape here is what's really holding them back. So there's all these laws and insurances and regulations and poor infrastructure that's available and things of that nature, and the cost of development is very expensive, right? It's you have to build it around all these hurdles. Whereas in Africa, you have a whole lot of wide open land that is undeveloped, where you can develop it the way you want as a company, as a developer, an architect. You can look at it and say, okay, this is how I would want to run my autonomous vehicles, and you don't have all this bureaucratic tape because nobody's there to no one's there to harass you. There's no enforcement there, if that makes any sense. You have 2/3 of Africa that has not been developed, so you have a lot of roads, dirt roads, that could be actually paved and constructed in a way so that an autonomous vehicle can travel down that path.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to piggyback on what you're saying with the infrastructure, we've mentioned multiple times on this channel where Africa can leapfrog the infrastructure America has. They can go from where they're at now to the future, just like they leapfrog when we read in Arco. They leapfrog a lot of landlines and things like that into now you got this cellular connectivity. And like you said, it's wide open. You don't have to tear down current roads or current bridges to put up more interactive IoT based roads, IoT based bridges in order to help supplement that infrastructure for autonomous vehicles. It's just why do you start from scratch, a clean slate? And I agree with you. And now with this 5G coming rolling out, and the 5G is allows for latency to zero latency with autonomous vehicles, makes it a continuous connection. Again, Africa, you have that lower um, entry to this technology where you don't have to tear down streets. Because, in America, a lot of streets we have already full of potholes. You got to clean them up. Now you got to tear up at least the main streets at the first beginning to lay down the infrastructure to speak with these autonomous vehicles. That costs a lot of money. And like you said with Africa, you just got to lay it down. You need to tear it up.
Exactly, and I think a lot of the roads in America are really designed around traditional horse and buggy. At least the urban city centers are, right. New York, Boston, D.C. Those are really horse and buggy paths converted to actual um, modern day roads. In Africa, they never really had that, right? Most of the roads were really designed for extracting resources for the colonialist powers, and so it was made just well enough so that to continue the extracting of those resources, but at the same time, it's in the perfect position to be developed for that very reason, and that allows Africa to benefit from infrastructure development, and it allows those autonomous vehicle companies to actually test out their vehicles there before actually deploying them in the rest of the world. We read an article earlier, just a few items ago, that said that 2050 or 2060 or something like that, Africa is expected to have at least 2 billion people. So a lot of vehicles that's going to be needed to be developed, and a lot of infrastructure that needs to be developed in order to take on all of those people. All right, next one is from CNBC.com. The trucking industry is desperate for drivers. Autonomous vehicles can help. The trucking industry needs more drivers to meet rising demand, especially as retailers face pressure to deliver as fast as Amazon. But the job requires long hours driving in all kinds of weather and weeks away from home for long hauls. The lifestyle hasn't drawn in younger workers, in part because of low average wages in trucking. In the U.S., tractor trailer truck drivers earned a median income of $44,500 a year in 2017, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. At the same time, shippers are looking for ways to cut costs. Watch the video. Yeah, that video is not available, but we talked about this before that a lot of black men could be taking advantage of these truck driving jobs. Can't find enough truckers. None of the migrants are able to be licensed. I can't see how you can go wrong with this. These are wide open jobs.
Yeah, I saw the video, and the video was basically talking about how, in order to fulfill the current demand for truckers, you will have to hire close to 1 million new people, like some crazy number, like 800,000, 900,000. Um, the long haul truckers, the ones that are on the road for long periods of time, a lot of younger people don't want to do that. So that's creating a shortage of truckers. I know we went over an article where Elon Musk had to purchase a trucking company in order to get out all the Teslas that before this tax break started, and that meant shipping a lot of Teslas over the long haul over the country. So what they're proposing is these, excuse me, my itch. What they're proposing is these companies such as Too Simple and there's like one, two other companies where they have autonomous driving is have the since the long highway roads are easier to drive compared to inner city urban roads. They what they want to do is put autonomous vehicles, autonomous trucks on these open roads because they're straight, they don't curve. There's no a lot of surprises on these roads, and they'll stick to the southern part of the U.S. since the weather is more predictable. So they want to put these autonomous trucks on the wide open roads and leave the inner city. No, I won't say inner city, but the city roads to the truckers, and use the humans as a last mile, first mile, last mile situation.
Hmm. Yeah, I think this opens up the market, and then we talked about this before, to fractionalize in trucking. Instead of one brother buying a truck, you get 100 brothers to put in on that one truck, and then everybody benefits from the use of the truck. There's a variety of ways that you can go about this, and I won't mention it on this hangout, but there's a variety of ways you can go about this to make it profitable.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Blockchain, cryptos, tokens, IoT, all of this, cloud computing, all of this is a part, 5G. All of this is a part of one single application. So you have the emerging of all of these technologies being utilized for the profitability of this market. So, and looking at this video right now, the truck is autonomous. It's working without any human interaction. Now, let me see if I can pull up this from Udacity again. We mentioned Udacity quite a few times on here, but I'm gonna pull it up again because they have a program on autonomous systems. So if you click on autonomous systems, we'll see here that you get a nano degree in the field of autonomous vehicles or autonomous systems. The field of autonomous vehicles is set to grow by 42% within the next 4 years. Remember, we covered a article about the World Economic Forum on Saturday that discussed there's going to be a huge shift in skill sets for the new job market by 2022. So you only have between 2019 and 2022 to really shape up these skills necessary for this emerging market. This actual nano degree program is talking about salaries for top engineers averaging between $300,000 to $500,000. Advance your career before studying by 15 hours a week. Some of these hangouts that we've talked about are 8 hours a week. I mean, 8 hours a day, talking about nonsensical things. So we have the intro to self-driving cars, nano degree, robotic software engineer, C++ nano degree program that goes with it, and self-driving car engineer nano degree. Step 1 is intro to self-driving cars nano degree. Step 2 is self-driving car engineer nano degree. And step 3 is data structures and algorithms. Step 4 is C++ nano degree program. So, what's interesting about, these sort of programs is that when you think about black people who can recite lyrics from a hip hop song, they don't realize that lyrics in a song is actually code for rhythm. So rhythm would be the algorithm, and the lyrics are the code. So when you combine those two together, now you're talking about a very complex way of communication. And black people have mastered this for the last, century or more. Hip hop. I mean, a lot of people from the manosphere want to talk about where hip hop really started, but if you really go back into Africa pre-slavery, they were already communicating in their own language in a way where people where people nod their heads and stuff like that to the rhythm as they tap the bongos and stuff like that. That's all a part of that sort of science. So black people should be mastering this type of stuff, um, like autonomous driving, autonomous vehicles, and robotics and stuff like that, and all these other emerging technologies. Black people should be at the forefront of all this stuff.
Agreed, agreed. I say.
All right, let me see if I can get to this next article. All right, this next one is from the University of Michigan. A Jetson's future, assessing the role of flying cars in sustainable mobility. In the 1960s animated sitcom Jetsons, George Jetson communicates to work in his family-sized flying car, which miraculously transforms into a briefcase at the end of the trip. A new study of environmental sustainability impacts on flying cars, formerly known as electric vehicle takeoff and landing aircraft, or VTOLs, finds that they wouldn't be suitable for a Jetson-style short commute. However, VTOLs, which combine the convenience of vertical takeoff and landing like a helicopter with the efficient aerodynamic flight of an airplane, could play a niche role in sustainable mobility for longer trips, according to the study, which published April 9th in Nature Communications. Several companies around the world are developing VTOLs prototypes. Flying cars would be especially valuable in congested cities or in places where there are geographical constraints as part of the ride sharing taxi service, according to the study authors from the University of Michigan's Center for Sustainable Systems and from Ford Motor Company's Research and Advanced Engineering team. To me, it was very surprising to see that VTOLs were competitive with regards to energy use and greenhouse gas emissions in certain scenarios, said Gregory Keolin, senior author of the study and director of the Center for Sustainable Systems at University of Michigan's School for Environmental and Sustainability. VTOLs with full occupancy could outperform ground-based cars for trips from San Francisco to San Jose or Detroit to Cleveland, for example. The University of Michigan's Ford study, the first comprehensive sustainability assessment of VTOLs, looked at the energy use, greenhouse gas emission, and time savings of VTOLs compared to ground-based passenger cars. Although VTOLs produce zero emissions during flight, their batteries require electricity generated at power plants. The researchers found that for trips of 100 kilometers, a fully loaded VTOL carrying a pilot and three passengers had a lower greenhouse gas emissions than ground-based vehicle cars within an average vehicle occupancy of 1.54. Emissions tied to the VTOL were 52% lower than gasoline vehicles and 6% lower than battery electric vehicles. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but when I think about this, I think about how do Africans actually take advantage of something like this, right? How do they, if you're if you're in if you're on the continent, how do you go from Uganda to Tanzania, from Tanzania to Botswana, from Botswana to Ghana. Just something to think about.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you were gonna say something else. Ever since, and I don't mean this as a joke or anything, but this is an actual thing. Ever since Back to the Future with the hoverboard, people have been asking, "Hey, where's my hoverboard? Hey, where's my flying cars? You told us you were gonna have this in the future." But when you actually think about these things, there needs to be a lot of thought to put in these things. You know, you safety, so forth, so forth. It's possible. Um, it's not impossible. Again, there needs to be the correct infrastructure and the just like the I think it was last article how we said Africa with this infrastructure. If and I just want to paint the picture for the people that's listening. A few weeks ago, we covered an article where China was building a bridge that can speak to autonomous vehicles based on IoT, autonomous driving, things like that, where vehicles that were drove on this bridge every so amount of feet or kilometers, there would be a pole to speak to the car to let the car know, hey, up ahead is traffic, or let the car know what's going on up ahead. Then we covered an article about Tesla, how they were talking about how having other Teslas and other vehicles speak to each other to have a current up to date situation on what's going on with the traffic around town and not only on that stretch of road. So you build that type of road in Africa where it's wide open to be laid down. You build that type of infrastructure up. But unlike past infrastructure where it was first horse and buggy, and in these 13 colony areas, such as Boston, such as New York, such as Maryland, D.C., in these areas, the streets were wide enough to just lay down concrete on top of these bricks, and therefore you built the next infrastructure, which is the current infrastructure, on the old infrastructure. Now take that type of concept to this new fourth industrial revolution to from that to the future. Now you have the infrastructure where it's weaved in with technology. So in the future, where you do have flying cars, only thing you need to do is build an infrastructure on top of that. So Africa will already have the infrastructure in place to build these flying cars, to build these in the other infrastructure that you can think of in the future.
Hmm. Yeah, there's going to be a huge market for this in places like that because Africa already has a transportation issue, right? They don't have a bullet train, and they don't, and their airline industry is very dismal for the most part. It's very expensive to go from one place to the other. Outside of like a Greyhound style bus, right? A coach style bus. I mean, that's like the cheapest way of transportation from one country to the next across the continent, from intercontinental travel. You need some form of vertical takeoff and landing based vehicle, or you need a bullet train. You're gonna have to decide on which one it's gonna be. All right, let me get to this next one. CNBC.com. Strato launch the world's largest airplane and built to launch rockets takes first flight. Aviation has a new number one in size as a one of a kind airplane completed in its first test flight on Saturday morning above California's Mojave Desert. The test the test makes the immense Stratolaunch the largest airplane in the world to fly, with a wingspan measuring 385 feet, wider than a football field is long. The plane flew 2.5 hours over the Mojave at altitudes of up to 17,000 feet, hitting a maximum speed of 189 miles per hour. With two fuselages and six Boeing 747 engines, the Stratolaunch is built to launch rockets from the air. Stratolaunch is an air launch system, meaning that the aircraft will carry rockets up to about 35,000 feet, and then drop the rocket. One of the advantages of such a system, touted by Stratolaunch as well as Richard Branson's Virgin's orbit, is that flying in and out of traditional runway gives greater flexibility and eventually will allow for a quick turnaround between launches. The company has had various partnerships as well as internal plans for the rockets that Stratolaunch will carry. SpaceX was one of the company's earliest partners, but Stratolaunch later switched to a contract with Northrop Grumman owned Orbital ATK to fly a Pegasus XL rocket. Stratolaunch helped to develop its own fleet of rockets, was scrapped in January. Stratolaunch Systems is owned by Vulcan, which manages the estate of late Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen. The billionaire entrepreneur founded Stratolaunch in 2011 in partnership with specialty aircraft builder Sealed Composites. Allen died in October following complications of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. We all know Paul would have been proud to witness today's historic achievement, said Jody Allen, chair of Vulcan and trustee of the Paul G. Allen Trust, in a press release. The aircraft is remarkable engineering achievement, and we congratulate everyone involved. Allen's passing is cited as one of the main reasons for the shift in Stratolaunch's plans at the beginning of this year, when the company announced in January that it was ending development of its own rocket engines and vehicles. Stratolaunch reportedly laid off more than 50 of its 80 employees. Damn. This is interesting. They want to launch rockets from it, but it doesn't seem. Hmm.
It's almost like where would you launch the rockets from? Either the middle or the
Yeah,
side.
they say that it's going to be a drop, but it doesn't seem all that feasible. I'm trying to figure out what kind of rocket it's going to be. Let me look this up.
How's everyone doing tonight? We reached 1,000 subscribers. We thank everybody for subscribing and for tuning into our shows. We hope that you learned a lot. Um, yeah, a lot more to go, a lot more to come. Stay tuned.
All right, let me share my screen. This is NASA's channel for the Pegasus XL rocket. So I guess a Boeing jumbo jet carries this rocket. It takes up to a certain height, and then I guess it deploys from there.
And this aircraft would fly higher than that aircraft that launched that rocket.
I haven't seen all of the preliminaries for it, but so you get up to, I mean, you in order to hit the stratosphere, you have to get at least 80,000 feet up.
Uh-huh.
If they're telling us that that airplane is only going to take it up, 40,000 feet, I guess I can see the cost efficiency behind it, but I'm not sold on the whole concept.
Mm.
It makes sense. It makes sense, but I'm just not sold on that whole entire concept of you need a plane that's 385 feet wide in order to launch a Pegasus rocket. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Now,
Hmm.
if it was that wide in order to fly at the top of the stratosphere, then and then on top of that drop multiple weapons or bombs, then all right.
Hmm.
But to build it that big and not outperform what's already there, that doesn't make sense.
Hmm. The Pegasus rocket is actually a functional model, but I'd be interested in seeing, other launch mechanisms implemented for it. So, all right, this next one is from space.com. Israel's Bereshit spacecraft crashes into moon during landing attempt. Israel's first moon lander came up short in its historic touchdown bid this afternoon. The robotic uh, Bereshit spacecraft built by Space.io and Israel Aerospace Industries aimed to become the first Israeli craft and the first privately funded mission ever to land softly on the moon. But the little robot couldn't quite make it, crashing into the gray dirt around 3:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mission Control lost communication with the spacecraft when it was about 489 feet above the moon's surface. We had a failure in the spacecraft. We unfortunately have not managed to land successfully. Offer Doran, the general manager of IAI or IAL, sorry. If at first you don't succeed, you try again, said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who watched Bereshit's landing attempt from Space.io's control center in Yehud, Israel. So the list of moon landing nations remains at three, all of them superpowers: the Soviet Union, United States, and China. Bereshit's story begins in 2011 when the nonprofit organization Space.io formed to compete in the Google's Lunar X Prize. The GLXP offered $20 million to the first privately funded team to put a robot down softly on the moon, move it at least 1,650 feet on the lunar surface, and have it send high resolution imagery home to Earth. The runner up would pocket $5 million. In addition, an additional $5 million was available for various special accomplishments, bringing the contest total prize to $30 million. The competition ended last year without a winner, but Space IL and IAL, the country's biggest aerospace and defense company, continued working on the 5 foot tall Bereshit. Last month, the X Prize Foundation announced that Space IL could win a special $1 million moonshot award if Bereshit successfully landed on the lunar surface. Just minutes after the moon's crash, X Prize founder and executive chairman Peter uh, Diamandis and CEO Anushis Asari said Space IL and IAL will receive the reward despite failing to land. I wonder why. Doesn't really go into, they don't really go into exactly what was the failure. I guess they would never know, right? Because they
They
lost
had
contact with it.
the rocket, one of the rocket boosters malfunction. what happened was when they approached the moon, they approached they knew it where they wanted to go, and they approached the room the moon at a rapid speed. So the satellite turned around to allow the rocket boosters burn in the opposite direction to slow it down. But
Right.
there's there's a number of rockets on the bottom of these things, not just one. And one of the rocket boosters failed tilting the rocket. So that's why when you see the quote unquote selfie picture before it crashed, it was at a tilted angle. So that meant one of the back boosters didn't turn on, and then it crashed into the moon. So it was a malfunction of the rockets.
Do you know if it had a parachute?
No, I don't think a parachute would work at that gravity level, at that gravity, because you need air to um for the parachute. I don't think it would have worked, but they didn't say if it
Why
had
not?
a parachute.
Yeah, but that's how they lowered the Mars rover down.
Hmm.
If you look at the Mars rover, it actually was lowered down by parachutes. They deployed about 20,000 feet above, which
Hmm.
slowed it down from thousands of miles per hour down to like 100 miles and down to 50 miles and then down to like 20, and then the boosters on the bottom kicked in to actually lower it down just enough to hit the ground.
Hmm. No, I don't think any parachutes. I didn't hear nothing.
Yeah.
It was a video they talked about it, and it wasn't nothing about the parachute. As a matter of fact, yeah, no. They didn't say nothing about the a parachute.
Hmm. All right. This next one is from BGR.com. NASA's Curiosity rover just drilled a new hole on Mars. The the year 2019 started off on a bittersweet note for NASA with the unfortunate demise of the incredibly trusty Opportunity rover on Mars. It was a sad day for the scientific community as a whole, but it wasn't the only rover cruising around the red planet. And NASA's Curiosity rover has continued to continue its stellar work as it mourns the loss of its comrade. Now continuing on its quest to learn more about the Martian landscape. Curiosity has successfully drilled another hole in the new location, securing a sample that the robot will soon analyze. In a new blog post, NASA's Curiosity team reveals the successful drilling attempt at a target. Sorry, a lot of smudges on my screen. At a target that's been nicknamed Aberleti. The rock is one. The rock is one of the many that Curiosity has sampled since it landed on Mars way back in 2012. But the data it provides is no less important. We'll kick off the Sol 2372 plan when a short science block to analyze two targets with uh, ChemCam, the inside of the drill hole, Iberleti, and a nearby bedrock target, Meyer. We'll also use NavCam to conduct a dust devil observation. The Curiosity team writes, the next step in our the next step in our drill campaign is to determine if we collected powder rock sample and whether it is behaving as expected. This might seem like a normal day for Curiosity, and in many ways it is. But the fact that Curiosity is successfully drilling anything at this point is a testament to NASA's ingenuity. You see, Curiosity isn't drilling things in the way that it was originally designed for. And After an unexpected failure back in late 2017, NASA's engineers were forced to come up with a new way for the rover to use its drills. Um, I know you have anything you want to add to this article about this article?
It's- excuse me, it's good. He drilled. We don't want to overstate a hole, but I mean it's a hole on Mars, and they're talking, and that's information. That's information you can there analyze on Mars and have that much more information before you send the humans to Mars. You can get, the composition of the soil. You know how hard that area that it drilled. We covered an article where a few weeks ago, I'm gonna say 2 months ago, where one of the rovers was drilling like a meter depth up under the surface
Mm.
to send off. I can't think of the word, but to see the under terrain of Mars. That's a lot of information before you get to Mars. You don't want to send humans to Mars and all of a sudden you got to redo all this information. Just do it now, and you you never know. You may find something that'll say, "Hey, there was water here at some point in time," and that may back up a number of theories that may be out there to say, "Well, Mars used to be like this." That's good information. It may look like a hole on top, but that's a plethora of information that can data they can extract from that.
You know what they need to put up there is a whole entire space lab, right? Where the samples can be processed at scale, right? You're not just processing one thing at a time, two things at a time, right? You're talking like a whole entire inflatable um, dome where the robots could actually crisscross across the planet and actually, keep dropping off samples to, this lunar laboratory. That way, you're freeing up all of the utility of the robot itself, right? The rover itself. The rover only has to do one thing, which is go out and get samples, and then come back and drop those samples off to the portable research lab. See, I come from a school of thought where um, what they call KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. If your robot has to do more than one thing at a time, um, you're putting the robot at risk for more failure and complexity. If it's too complex, that means it's going to it's subjected to a lot of probability of failure. So if the robot only has to do one thing, which is go out and retrieve something, and the laboratory has to do all the processing, let it do the processing. Why make it do more than one thing at a time? But that's how I was taught, right? In the during undergrad. This is
Hey,
why typically.
go
Go ahead.
ahead.
No, I was saying this is why typically with computer programs you have an operating system, but then you'll have applications. If your operating system and your applications were one, then the amount of lines of code that has to be written is going to be double, triple, and quadruple. It'll be too much. So you always have your application separate from your operating system, and this is why in the blockchain world you hear about dApps or decentralized applications.
I'm familiar with that KISS method. That's what we were taught in the military. Keep it simple, stupid. Um, and simplicity goes a long way. It may
Mhm.
The process may seem complex to other people, but if you're in that area for so long, it's going to be simple. But I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and that could reduce all your investment into robots. Like you can deploy 12 robots to do multiple different things, to go out and actually research different or actually go retrieve different pieces of soil or water or things, do more drilling and excavation and things like that. Like when you look at a construction site or a mining site, it's never just one thing that does everything, right? You have earth movers, you have um, back what do you call it, backhoes and things like that, front loaders. You have conveyor belts that do, that takes the payload up, and then there's another item that might, or another piece of equipment that might crush the rock, and there's the sprayers and all types of decentralized tools and equipment that are in one location for one main objective, which is to mine. And I think what's happening on with these Mars missions is that there's too much emphasis being put behind one piece of equipment to do multiple things that it shouldn't do, and realistically.
Hmm, okay.
Because you can run the whole entire a space power plant, or a research lab for that matter, on a planet using nuclear energy. Nuclear energy could last anywhere between 50 to 75 years.
Hmm.
So therefore, you won't have to worry about batteries running out, different, alternative sources. I mean, you can use solar power, but for something that's going to be up there for the next 30 or 40 years, you don't have the ability to wipe off those solar panels. You want something that's going to have complete, um, supply of energy day and night to do all the processing.
Right. And I remember we went over that planet-wide dust storm. That you want to avoid that type of stuff.
hmm Yeah, DE says in the chat, several robots utilizing echo sounding could be used to see almost everything below the surface of Mars. Yep, that's actually the point that I was getting to. All right, let me get to this next one on the docket. This next one is from StreamTech.com. ExoMars detects almost no methane on Mars in surprise result. One of the keys to scanning the red planet for present or past life is understanding the molecules that make up its thin atmosphere. Various missions have detected methane on Mars, considered to be one of the hallmarks of living organisms. The arrival of the ExoMars mission with its Trace Gas Orbiter (TGO) instrument provided scientists with a chance to make the most accurate measurements of methane concentration yet. However, the first major data release shows almost none of the gas in Mars' atmosphere. That's an unexpected result. The TGO is the orbital position of the ExoMars mission, or orbital portion of the ExoMars mission. Sorry. It's also the only part of the ExoMars mission now. Sadly, the Russian-made Shipperelli lander failed to slow itself with the landing thrusters because of the faulty sensor. It crashed into the Martian landscape, leaving TGO to soldier on alone. Luckily, the TGO is the most sensitive atmospheric tool ever sent to Mars. It carries a variety of infrared and ultraviolet spectrometers that can scan the atmosphere for trace gases. There's also a neutron detector for mapping water and hydrated minerals. It sits in a roughly circular orbit 250 miles above Mars, sniffing the atmosphere and counting molecules. The first data set from the April 2018 to August 2018 shows almost no methane on Mars, a maximum of 0.012 parts per billion. That's many times lower than what scientists expected from the rudimentary methane detectors on the Curiosity rover. Lionel, what do you think about this?
Hello? Hello?
Oh, Lionel left.
No, no, I had lost connection. My bad. What was your question?
No, I was asking, what did you think about the article?
Oh, okay, yeah. To be honest, I was out for a good 30 seconds.
Okay.
I was out for a good 30. I didn't listen to the last part of it.
No, that's fine. We'll get to our last article, and then we'll open it up for open mic. All right, this next one is from NationalGeographic.com. A new super Earth may orbit the star next door. We are pleased to
You still there, Mike? Hello? Mic check, mic check.
to discuss this conference.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. It
It's only
said,
a can.
we are pleased in you. I don't know. You went out.
Are you sure you didn't lose your connection?
I don't know now. That's a good question.
It is only a candidate, he says. This is very important to the underlying. If the planet is there, it's at least 6 times more massive than Earth, making it what's called a super Earth, and it takes 1,936 days to loop once around its star. That means that the planet's average surface temperature is much too cold for liquid water to flow. Is this planet habitable?
Okay, I see two of you. Um, you went out. Is this planet habitable?
Yeah, is this planet habitable? Well, not really. It's quite cold, says Fabio Del Soto, University of Crete. In 2016, scientists with the Pale Red Dot project revealed the first known world orbiting Proxima Centauri, a planet at least 1.3 times as massive as Earth. That's perhaps warm enough for life as we know it to thrive on the surface. Scientists identified that planet, called Proxima Centauri b, by studying how its gravity tugs on Proxima Centauri and causes the star to wobble. Recently, Damaso and Del Soto decided to revisit the data used to spot Proxima b. They processed it somewhat differently, removed the signals from Proxima b and intrinsic stellar activity, and added 61 measurements made over an additional 549 days by HARP spectrograph mounted on a telescope at Chile's La Silla Observatory. In total, they then had approximately 17 years worth of data on the star's wiggles and wobbles. In it, they spotted a signal that could be another planet in orbit around Proxima Centauri. If it's there, and that's still a sizable if, Proxima C takes a little more than 5 Earth years to trudge once around its star, orbiting at a distance that's 1.5 times farther than Earth is from the Sun. this detection is very challenging. Del Soto says we ask, we ask ourselves many times if this is a real planet, but that's but what is sure but what is sure is that even if the planet is a castle in the air, we should keep working to put even stronger foundations under it. Lionel, what do you think about this?
I think it's excuse me, the research is going into this to find another Earth-like planet is amazing. Imagine there has to be another Earth-like planet out there, and their scientists are not going to announce these things unless how am I trying to, every time they announce it, they found out that another Earth-type planet has been found. It gets closer and closer to Earth-type. Now, this planet takes a long time to circle the sun, meaning what that could mean is I don't know if it necessarily means this, but one of the meanings is it is further away from its sun. So the further away from your sun, your her star, the longer it takes to circle. Um, I am more excited of finding an Earth-type planet that is close enough. Obviously not I find a perfect one, but close enough where we don't need that much terraforming to make it like Earth, to make it where we can survive without always having to wear some type of helmet or do something special. We just land and just set up shop. Hello? What?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I thought I went off. But this is all interesting to me, tell you the truth.
Yeah, we're gonna need to get one of those telescopes you seen, like I think from Celestron. Um,
Man.
they got a new one that just came out. So
Oh, you know what? I wonder when because the NASA chief, I think he's actually Bredenstein, I forgot. Jim Bredenstein, I think that's his name. He was saying how they want to send people back to the moon by the mid 20s, mid 2020s. So imagine you sitting there in your home with this big telescope, and because obviously they're going to land on the shining side of the moon because the moon is tidal locked,
mhm.
and you sitting there and yeah, you see them blast off, but you like, okay, they should be there another 2 weeks because they taking I forgot the elliptical track to get to the moon, but they taking that track. So you like, wow, there it go. I mean, it's cool because you can see the ISS pass bypass between the Earth and the Moon. Well, that's is pretty much in a mesosphere, but
Mhm.
imagine you just sitting there and you like, oh man, they landed on the moon, blah blah blah. You know, that's I think that'd be really cool because of the how sophisticated these telescopes have gotten so far.
And now we're talking about aggregating those telescopes. Imagine you have the ability to connect these telescopes across a series to get a bigger picture, right? To get a wider picture in as many images as possible. You can actually do that, right? $20,000 would get you an array of telescopes of similar power. Connect them all through an IoT device with a laptop, and then let them collect all the images in a series, so you can build a bigger picture.
hmm
But what do we know, right? We're just a bunch of educated lames. Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
But you know that I think that'd be cool because back when, well, I know you have some doubts about this, but let's let's in like they did, back in the 60s, everybody saw the rocket go off,
Hmm.
launch, and that was it. That was it. By the time they go this time, 5G rolled out. You never know. what new telescopes will come out in preparation for another moon landing. Now you sitting there on YouTube like, oh, they got it. That'll be cool, man.
Hmm.
Then they talking about internet and space. I don't think I sent that email out, but the guy really broke down how interstellar internet will work. They talking about that where they can get it to they can potentially get it to the point where humans go to Mars and they take a quick selfie and post on Twitter like we made it to Mars. That, oh man, it's outstanding, man.
You can actually do that with a Raspberry Pi. So there's an application layer. I shouldn't say application layer, but there's actual API capabilities there where you can get an Arduino to actually do that. The Arduino will be programmed, specifically programmed just to do that, to tweet.
Like tweet when you land on the surface of Mars.
Tweet when you tell it to do anything, right?
Oh, okay.
So when I move 10 paces, take a picture and tweet that out.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, man. This man, interstellar internet, like really?
Well,
It's crazy.
didn't we just talk about that on the Cube satellite hangout?
Yeah, we did. We did. Because the satellites has to be in um, the geosynchronous orbit where the GPS satellites are. That's like 35,000 kilometers
Hmm.
up there. So they'll be basically locked onto a position on Earth, and they're talking about lasers because radio waves are not going to get it. With the
Yeah,
radio waves, it'll just make the signal longer.
right, right. I mean, the signal will be consistent, but it'll just take a longer amount of time. Plus, it's cheaper, right? A laser is going to cost a lot more money, and it has to be pinpoint to the target.
Hmm.
It's not like, oh, you broadcast over laser, but you overshot your target, and you still got your signal out. No, the signal actually has to it has to reach its target. That's why
Right.
you'll notice that when they put up satellite dishes on people's houses, it's always angled at a certain way. It's just not. They don't just throw it up and then leave it. It has to be angled at a certain way so that it actually is in position of that satellite.
Hmm. Yeah, because yeah, like I said, it has to be locked. But yeah. Oh, um, other little tidbit when that Israeli uh Bereshit satellite crashed, that was actually Tesla's first time landing all three booster rockets, all three Falcon rockets back.
Hmm.
They landed because they it went on Falcon Heavy, and the booster rockets landed, and the main rocket landed. The booster rockets landed on land, and the main rocket landed on its autonomous drone ship. Of course, I still love you. So that's the name of the ship. So
Hmm.
yeah, it landed. It's pretty cool.
Hmm. Let me jump to this next one right here. 'Cause something that didn't make it to the docket that should have.
Okay. Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and do that thing real quick.
All right, have a good one, bro.
All right.
All right, this next one is from Forbes.com. Thoughts on blockchain enterprise adoption with founder of two top 100 projects. It's been it's been a relatively difficult year for blockchain in its public opinion, and all of the eyes are set on the very near future. Could it scale with? Could it scale while remaining secure? Will companies corporate companies finally adopt it? Not to mention end users. What keeps it in the long-term plan from happening? I sat down with Jack Liu, founder of WanChain and Factom, two blockchain projects with a conjoined market cap of around $120 million. That also works with corporates such as Telefonka on mass adoption initiatives. Jack Lew. I first got involved with Bitcoin in 2012. Around this time, one of my friends asked if I would look into a startup called Ethereum. I researched the project, read the white paper, and was immediately captivated by this vision. Soon after, I started coding on Ethereum. When I decided to invest all of my Bitcoin into Ethereum initial coin offering, in 2013, I was approached by David Johnston and Paul Snow to start a company called Factum, where I joined as CTO and co-founder. In 2016, I decided to move back to as China to build blockchain solutions for local enterprises and government organizations. I also began incubating the WAN chain idea. Why do you think financial corporations are slow to adopt digital as assets? On the technical side, the industry needs more work on creating user friendly tools or applications that incorporate cross blockchain technology. The financial organizations can't adopt it knowing the end user will have trouble using it. Once an incredibly user friendly application can solve a problem for a mass audience, we will start to see industry take off. The ideal vision for the future of interoperability between blockchains is a world where the user interacts with applications without any knowledge. That value and data are being transferred across multiple blockchains in the background. However, to get to this point, there needs to be very well established standardization and specifications among the industry. I believe the most significant progress that the broader business environment is waiting for is regulatory clarity, particularly in the United States. In addition, blockchain governance needs to continue to evolve to be able to handle the governance required for many traditional financial institutions to operate without centralized authority. The future of the decentralized autonomous organization is definitely a strong possibility, but we will need to wait for this capability to improve over time. Communication Enterprise Telefonka has recently partnered with you. What type of adoption are you trying to achieve? We partnered with Telefonka and Rivets to try and reach their mass South American European user base. So far, we have built a secure cross-chain wallet prototype that we demonstrated at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. We are ecstatic about the potential in leveraging mobile devices to foster broader consumer and enterprise adoption. I believe we will see a similar uptake market to achieve what we saw with the traditional technology industry, where mobile devices exponentially increase utilization of applications across every sector of business. Along these same lines is the importance of blockchain enabled mobile payment and point of sales devices. Our partners and friends at PundiX are building a global payment ecosystem made up of mobile phones, point of sale devices, and crypto wallets to enable mass adoption of crypto commerce. This hardware will generate this hardware will this hardware generation will play a major role in creating an ecosystem to support consumer friendly retail with digital currencies. What is your perspective on the role of privacy in the industry? Confidentially, confidentiality will always be important to business transactions and data such as healthcare records, supply chain data, and passports or identity. People through People thought Bitcoin was anonymous, but it's only pseudo anonymous because big data and AI can track many degrees of transaction history using the account address. As enterprise continues to move more and more to blockchain enabled solutions for added security, reliability, and openness, we are confident that customers will have a major requirement for confidentiality and privacy of their data and transactions. What narratives do you think will rise above the rest in 2019 as it shapes up to be a pivotal year for the industry? The blockchain and cryptocurrency space moves at light speed, so it's hard to choose just a few trends to define 2019. However, I am confident that DeFi, decentralized finance and open finance will continue to play principal roles in the narrative. This trend will also overlap with the introduction of more institutional investment into the space through vehicles such as proof of stake, which tends to be more analogous to analogous to the traditional business activities that these organizations are accustomed to. Finally, intercommunication between blockchains will continue to be one of the most significant topics in the industry. So we talked about this earlier in the hangout. That scalability is part of blockchain's problem. We talked about the scalability from a computing standpoint. It can only go so far before it starts to tap out and does not have the elasticity available um, to scale. So you get past anything over 10,000, 20,000, or I think anywhere between 5 to 10,000 transactions a second, or something to that effect. It starts to taper off. It really can't scale up like that. So if you're talking about bringing on millions, if not billions, of transactions in a day, then that becomes a problem. So scalability is the main concern from an engineering standpoint. Not so much as adoption. I think it's easy to get people to adopt. It's just harder to get those people to get the platform to actually scale up. So actually, let me drop that in the chat because I know people are gonna ask for it. So and now it's open mic. You guys got any questions you want to ask? We hit 1,000 subscribers today, so hit the thumbs up button if you have not. Support the channel. And we also have our anniversary coming up on Saturday, April 20th, to denote the 1 year celebration of the Black Brain Trust. We'll be 180 episodes in. And we've been consistent since day one, so, I think it's a milestone that we originally didn't think we were going to get this far. But we kind of stuck with the process. I know I know some other channels kind of deviate from what they should be doing, but will do anything to get a dollar. And we operate as a nonprofit. We don't believe in contributions financially, for that matter. So we've been kind of consistent in that approach. That if we don't take money, we won't alter our craft, if that makes any sense. We won't have to dance for butter biscuits. When we put out content, this is well thought out content. It takes a lot of work for us to create a docket for one hangout. So you imagine we're doing 3 or 4 hangouts a week, and now we have the cannabis hangout from Business Wealth and Power on Sundays. Our week is pretty full now, and it takes a lot of effort to actually get these dockets together and actually decipher what articles are going to make it to the docket, which order they're going to be in, and whether or not we have to vet the articles, because we can't just throw up fake news, right? We don't do fake news. So a lot of effort is put into actually getting this channel up and going from a nonprofit standpoint. We're not asking for anything other than to like the video and share the video. So we've been pretty consistent from day one. Although the format has been a little bit more structured than what it was when it first started. The first maybe 5 or 10 episodes. That was us just testing it out. We had different microphones back then, different laptops. So the quality has increased because the effort has stepped up a lot on our behalf. So Lionel is not here right now because Lionel is over on Solo 84 TV's channel, doing talking about crypto over there. But for right now, we're talking about For right now, we're talking about space and technology. But a lot of people are not always interested in what we're saying. But when I go into other people's non-black platforms, white platforms, Asian-based platforms, just non-black platforms, there's massive amounts of support for those platforms. And for black people, we don't really support our own, but then we complain that we don't have our own. So it's a bit of a dilemma. A lot of people are just not paying attention. They're not interested. They're kind of aloof. It might go over their head. But then they put in a lot of effort to go to somebody else's platform to talk about women, and it's like, okay, why put in so much effort for that? But over here, you kind of don't stick around for more than 10 minutes. At least that's what our statistics say, right? Our statistics say that people spend anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes watching our videos, and I think that you know maybe we can do something better how we deliver information. Maybe we can make it more interactive. This it's up to you guys on how you see how you're receiving the information from this platform. If you think we're doing something wrong, if you think we can improve in some areas, you can always leave your comments under the video. Yeah, thank you, Joe Black. Thank you. He says, Joe Black says y'all doing good, man, and I appreciate that. We tried, man. We tried a lot. Joe Black says it's slowly growing, but slowly but surely. Yeah. It's interesting to see like other people's platforms who are not talking about anything get massive support. Not just from financially, but from a user input standpoint. There's people who really aren't talking about anything in the manosphere, and they get 500 people at a time listening to this. I'm like, what exactly is this person saying that is so, um, so so interesting that you felt the need to partake in their platform, but you don't really support what we're saying. So I somewhat think that our approach may be a little bit too dry. We're not really singing and dancing. We're not timing people out. We're not being obnoxious. We're kind of flat. And I'll admit to that. We're very vanilla, very boring, very dry. But how do you think most of these other groups of people excelled? If you think about India, India is an IT powerhouse, right? But that's because they educate their people um, to be that way. They cultivate their people to be that way. If you think about Israel, Israel has roughly the same amount of people per capita as African Americans, but they're doing 10 times more. When you think about places like Estonia, former Soviet republics, why are they running laps around African Americans in terms of what they what they set out to do. Whereas for us, if you try to have the same conversation with some African American men, for that matter, the conversation doesn't go anywhere. Yeah, Complex, it will be addressing this. So Complex asked in the chat, will the hangout on the 20th be addressing this? Yeah, we have to kind of identify what is the manosphere. You know, what does it really mean to be in the manosphere? What value is the manosphere really contributing to Black society? You know, these are questions that have to really be asked. You know, to get an understanding of where any of this is going. Yeah, we don't have enough tattoos on the hangout. There's not enough dirt bikes and tattoos and thick beards. You know, that's just really what some people like is thick beards and Dollar General, dollar store non-prescription glasses with lumberjack shirts, lumberjack flannel shirts. Maybe if we started driving Subarus or something like that. Yeah, the same thing for the BAIO. You know, BAIO. You know, Black African Infrastructure Organization. They don't get a whole lot of support, but everybody's pro-black though, right? Um everybody's pro-black when it's convenient for them. But when it's time to be pro-black, they're not actually pro-black, right? You know, you got people with gold teeth in their mouth who used to sell drugs, threatening other people in the hangout, talking about building a community. How you gonna build a community with people you're trying to kill? It's ridiculous. And you have women who aid in the bed of those men. I'm not going to get too much into that because I don't want to be on my soapbox too much. But I just wanted to focus on, just the aspect of where we started from, and how we got here. Man, it's interesting to see that we kind of stuck to the same message, although we've expanded just a little bit. We used to have just technology on Mondays, and then it went from technology on Mondays to space and technology. So kind of try to bring that whole entire STEM aspect into one single day. The broke genius says, "You have to face it. This channel is for the blurs." I never really liked that term, the broke genius, the blurs. Like black nerds, intellectualism. Um, and I saw some of these new hangouts, talking about what they consider to be an educated lame, right? And they always seem to put up Steve Urkel or Carlton Banks. When I was doing undergrad, there was no such thing as a Carlton Banks or a Steve Urkel. Nobody ever looked like that. And I graduated majority class of black men. I graduated majority class of black men. We've never had um, brothers that looked like that. They were twiddling their thumbs. They couldn't talk to people, and they were just so awkward. They were clumsy. Most of the guys that I graduated with looked just like Keep It Techie, Josh, myself, Christian, um, looked just like C Boogie. So, but they were smart. They were extremely smart cats, man. They all had girlfriends. They weren't, you know, they weren't the most dappered out guys. You know, regular guys wear polos, some Levi's, and some Air Force Ones or something like that. They were never, the whole educated lame thing. I hate these terms because it's it's a malicious attempt to sabotage the character of upwardly mobile black men. But in other society, in other groups across this country, they don't do that. Right? You don't see people in Silicon Valley calling their best, full stack developers educated lames. Like that term doesn't even exist with them. You don't see Indian women tearing down those brothers, those Indian men. I don't like Indian men because they eat too much curry. Like they don't talk like that. Like that's a proprietary thing for black people. So, hmm I'm not familiar with Richard Dixon. I'm not familiar with FAL is. Could you explain what FAL is? Yeah, I agree with you, Complex. There's just a lot of intellectual dishonesty in Black YouTube, and the biggest perpetuators have the most subs. Yeah, um, they're willing to throw other black men under the bus in order to make a profit. So, Jedi focus, the terminology needs to change too. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Galloway says the ambition is under attack. I agree with you on that as well. Rogsnox Legend, no oracles in my college year either. Yeah, I've never seen that before. Never seen that before. I think what happens here is that we run to Hollywood stereotypes in order to articulate this perception of an individual that we can't really pinpoint, right? It's kind of like you know, it's kind of like everybody always wants to say that the iPhone was the first smartphone, right? But in reality, there were phones before it that actually did the same exact thing. They just didn't get the support that the iPhone did. And I'm not trying to compare humans to the technology. I'm just showing you that the perception is that the iPhone is a smartphone. That when you say there's a smartphone and then there's an iPhone, it's like saying, well, there's a guy who's masculine and then there's an educated lame. No, you know, a man who goes to who focuses on collegiate studies doesn't make him any less of a man. Like he's still a man at the end of the day. Push his buttons, and we'll see how far his masculinity is. Right? How deep his masculinity is. Right? At the end of the day, we're still men. I just think that it's interesting that people have these discussions, but they don't really have a clear understanding of what happens in these circles. Right? They don't really know what's going on in those circles because they never really been there. You know, there was still, most of the guys I went to school with, they wore their hats at the back. They were cool. They were getting under the tables to wire up, Cat 5 cables, and they would splice, fiber, fiber cables and light it up and set up switches and routers and servers and be in the data center. They were cool guys, man. I don't. I've never heard of this, sort of Urkel person who was just so inadequate with his masculinity that he just couldn't get, he was involuntary celibate. That's. Yeah, Ronin Black, I agree with you. The disingenuous black youth upward mobility, they love the drama, the nonsense, and ignore the technology, finance, and geopolitics. I agree with you, Ronin. I say let them have their day. I'm not saying that they should stop supporting those guys or those people. I'm just saying for all these people who are talking about community this, community that, where are they at here? How can you talk about community and you're talking about, you know, you got a panel full of drug dealers and criminals on your hangout? I just find that to be interesting. What kind of community are they?
Well, well, you know, Mike, that's because the lames are supposed to be doing the work.
Dishwashers.
Yeah, supposed to be washing dishes and cleaning up the community and, you know, picking up all the broken pieces that weren't broken because due to their hands.
Hmm.
So there's a responsibility that I think has been placed on a certain segment of brothers that no one signed up for. No one ever said that's what their life's goals or objectives were to basically come behind the the people who ain't really trying to do any goddamn thing and really not trying to actually be of value and have high value communities. Okay, so they've relegated that role to brothers like us, and I think this channel is more of a crystallized representation of what our pure intent is, and it has zero to do with any sort of maintenance man role, cleanup role, whatever the case may be. And in all actuality, we possess the skill sets and the intellect to actually be the intelligentsia. So don't ask me to relegate myself to the role of like a cleanup guy when in all actuality I'm more equipped to be doing a good portion of the thinking for a lot of people who just don't necessarily show the impetus to do so.
Hmm. Oh, by the way, what's going on, Complex?
Oh, not much, man. Dude, I wish I could have got in on the hangout, man. I was out working. I'm on the West Coast, so I'm always behind on time. So it's
Hmm.
always late getting in on certain days.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm just reading the chat before I close out because Lionel's over
Okay.
at Solo 84 TV. So, but yeah, I think that you guys should actually I think you guys should actually show up to the hangout Saturday. It's going to be open mic. You guys going to be allowed to come on, from the chat and speak your piece. I think this is supposed to be a safe space for thinking black men. But we're going to redefine and define what it means, what the manosphere really means going forward. That discussion needs to take place, and I think that you guys should have input on this as well. We have a full panel.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, Mike. I don't think that going forward, it suits us to allow again others who aren't doing the necessary brain work to define things,
Hmm.
right? Especially who we are and what our roles are.
Hmm.
That's not really for them. That's not really for them to even have an opinion, to have anything. Like that's how I feel. It's just like, well, you and a person in a lesser role just needs to go ahead and stay right where they're at and not have any objective views of someone who's taking on things of a more important nature. So I think the time for self-defining what this is in terms of the man well, individually and collectively redefining what a quote unquote manosphere uh, actually should be. Not what it is, but what it should be, and then going on that notion of what it should be, and then sticking to that script and following and going down that path of what it should be, setting actual realistic, strategic goals for being involved in certain industries, investment strategies, and actually discussing them and then carrying them out. That's really what, to me anyway, what a manosphere should represent. It really, and and I don't give a shit if people take this whatever way, but I mean the manosphere, if all it is relegated to is just a bunch of bitching and moaning and complaining about women, I don't count me.
Yeah, let me read some of these chats. The Bro Genius says, "Who do you guys think is in the upper middle class and upper class? The so-called educated lames." Yeah, the educated lame, huh? See, let's go back for 1 second. So around circa the early I'm not gonna get into it right now. I'll define, what the educated lame is on Saturday because I think that there's a lot that needs to be discussed on Saturday. I'm hoping that you guys actually get on the panel and actually go in depth on this because the narrative needs to change and we need to be in more control of the narrative, which is why we have a structured hangout to keep the narrative, um, to make sure that we're staying on script and that we're not deviating from the path from another nonsensical talking points. Uh, so yeah, that's definitely something that has to happen.
I definitely agree, man. No, I agree.
Mhm. What, did I just lose my connection? No.
No, you good. I can hear you, man.
Okay.
But no, I mean, I saw the pre-scheduled hangout there, and I've been talking with Nagone. It was yesterday, and we talked today for a little bit. And I was gonna ask you about that, like if there was gonna be a docket, or was it gonna be like an open forum? Oh, but I do think this is it's a very important discussion to be had.
Hmm.
I just really don't. I just don't. I have an issue with accepting notions from people who aren't as productive about what it is I am or what I do or what my role is, or
Hmm.
any of the brothers that are listening in for that matter. That's not It's not really their place to make those determinations, to make those assessments. They're not in the venue to actually critically analyze who it is that we are as men. They really aren't.
Hmm.
I reject that wholesale largely, and I don't have a problem, if you identify with the Pookie archetype, that I got some in my family, man. So it is what it is, right? However, I'm just saying, like, we know what our role is.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And we see it, and we go about living that life, and that's really what it is. I mean, and the sum total of what it is that we produce in life is the proof and the evidence of that. See, so when there's proof and there's evidence, okay, I will not accept one's opinion about something.
Hmm.
Now, they can have an opinion about the evidence, about the proof, about the productivity, the
Hmm.
end result. They can have an opinion about that, but not about the person who's actually doing the work if they're not.
Hmm.
So I think we have to start to adopt an intellectually superior position, right? Where a lot of silly notions just get cast off. It just gets cast off. It's like somebody who's tossing pebbles at a window, 3 stories high.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like that's really what my take on it is, and I think that it's time that collectively we begin to adopt that mindset. Like what was it last year? We were being called snobs.
Hmm.
Okay, well, if that's what it takes, then so be it.
Dave in the chat asks, why do you think other communities celebrate their educated lanes, but black communities seem to criticize theirs? Um,
They don't think that they're educated lanes. This is what I'm saying.
y- yeah, that's why I didn't really want to go into it tonight because
Right, 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 right.
it's one of those things that you have to understand the origins of the term educated lane. Um, Now I'll briefly touch on it right now before we close out. But Sherry Shepard and Hill Hopper had a open forum that was based on some YouTube content from the original Manosphere, and they were talking about these why educated brothers aren't being selected, why do black women like thugs and all this other stuff, and they were talking about Hill Hopper, that Sherry Shepard had rejected Hill Hopper during his undergrad days, and so I think someone in the audience or something like that, or somebody on YouTube had said, um, just because you have a degree, you're still a lame. So basically, you're just an educated lame. So that's where that term really came from. That's where it originated from. This was around 2008, 2009. They had this forum. I think the forum might still be on YouTube if you search for Sherry Shepard and Hill Harper. So that's where that really came from. And Sherry Shepard went in on a few brothers in the audience, trashing them because she didn't like, the way they enunciated certain words and things of that nature, that kind of elitist sort of mindset. But that plays into the narrative of the discussion, right? So when you ask the question, um, why do you think other communities celebrate their educated lanes? Because there's no such thing as an educated lane in their communities. See, the term educated lane is that a person who is a black man who's achieved but is not sexually desirable. The problem here is that we're allowing someone to determine your place in society based on your sexual desirability as a man, and I think that that is a very false premise to take, and I think that's what we need to start clapping back on because I see I'm in the tech sector and I see a lot of other groups of men who they wear beat up Converse, and very fitted jeans and funny T-shirts that have like little jokes on them, and they never have these problems. And I always find that interesting that his humanity is respected outside of our community. His humanity is respected, but in our community, it's not respected. That's the crux of the issue, right? We're not respecting the humanity of upwardly mobile black men, right? The downward lack of mobility of black males who engage in this sort of criminality and uh, immobilization of black society is being rewarded and celebrated. And I think that that's where the problem is, that we've made our achieved men the enemies, and or the arch nemesis for that matter. Or like the brother on CNN said, that there's an adversarial view of these upwardly mobile black men, but there's a there's a sort of Robin Hood theory with the street guys, right? The unproductive black male, right? Somehow, you know, it's not his fault he sold drugs. It's Richard Nixon's fault, right? It's somebody else's fault that this is happening. It's never his fault.
No, no, it's never that. And truth be told, man, and to me, the ghost has been given up. I've been told by sisters already I'm intimidating. When you tell me that, then the gig is up. The jig is up. So that's really what it is that we're dealing with here. At bottom line is that look, if you possess a mind that is able to do things that most others can't, they're largely intimidated by that, women included, particularly our women, our sisters, particularly them, right? So for me, it's never been a mystery as to what this is really all about. Because you can go and get the non-productive dude, and she can pretty much kind of manipulate him, and he can kind of be, he can kind of be her toy in that sense. But when you actually are taking command, not only of your life, your home, but also taking an active, proactive role in your communities and stuff like that. That means that you set goals and agendas forth that have nothing to do with a lot of the idiosyncrasies and a lot of the dysfunction of the community. Because what you're actually doing is trying to rectify it. And see, if you're trying to rectify things, what happens is you're starting to shake up people's lifestyles or the way that they live, right? As dysfunctional as it is, ultimately, if you interject a change mechanism, it forces them to have to respond and react to it. And what we're getting is just pushback. That's really what all of this is. I mean, that's why I think like the conversations that are had largely it's a waste of time. Why spend 8 hours over and over talking about the same shit when really it's not that difficult to parse out? It's really just an intimidation factor, intellectual intimidation. That's really what this comes down to.
No, those are great points. Those are definitely great points. So, um, let me read the chat before we close out. Yeah, DE says the term educated lame is a contradiction. It is.
Our whole the black culture is largely it's a lot of contradiction and juxtapositions.
Hmm.
It's no different than when they say when they call when they what do they say, like a educated street dude or some shit.
Uh,
You know,
Tupac with a degree.
yeah, Tupac would some stupid shit like that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like,
Nipsey Hussle with a business on Crenshaw and Slauson.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing, man. It's like that's a lower form of thought in my view, right? So I can't take it seriously. That's the problem. Like I'm of the mindset where, dude, it's like if it's not really matching where I'm at, I can't take it seriously. I really can't.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think we'll touch on all this stuff on Saturday. I'll send out the dockets tomorrow morning, and
Yeah, I'm gonna save. I'm gonna save a lot of what I gotta save for Saturday.
yeah, because I can only imagine that this may open up the floodgates.
Oh well, then hey, let's open them.
All right, thank you all for joining us, and we'll be back on Wednesday with geopolitics. Peace.